Wait, do you even recognize them anymore? Not after years, but after just weeks. Some of Hollywood's biggest stars are changing fast, thinner, sharper, almost unrecognizable. And it's not just diet or workouts. Behind the red carpet glow, something darker is unfolding. A shortcut promising rapid transformation, but with real consequences. Nausea, weakness, bodies pushed too far. These aren't glow-ups. They're warning signs of a system that never stops demanding more. Katy Perry has always been known for her bold energy, colorful image, and larger-than-life presence. From vibrant music videos to massive stage performances, she built a brand around confidence, creativity, and fun. For years, she looked full of life, someone who owned every moment in the spotlight. That's why her recent appearances have left fans unsettled. In the past year, Katy appears noticeably thinner, with sharper facial features and a more fragile frame. The change didn't feel gradual. It seemed to happen quickly, and that sudden shift is what caught attention. But it's not just about weight. Observers have pointed out a difference in her overall presence. Where she once radiated energy, there now seems to be a visible sense of strain. At public events, fans have noticed moments where she looks tired or less engaged than before. Even with professional styling and makeup, there are signs that something feels different. Behind the scenes, there have been quiet conversations about the pressure of maintaining relevance in an industry that constantly demands reinvention. What makes this more complicated is the silence. Katy hasn't directly addressed the speculation, leaving space for assumptions to grow. Some believe it's simply a personal transformation. Others wonder if it reflects deeper pressure tied to image, performance, and staying competitive in Hollywood. Katy Perry's transformation highlights a larger reality. In an industry where change is expected, staying the same can feel like falling behind. And sometimes, the cost of keeping up isn't immediately visible, but it shows over time. Christina Aguilera has built her career on reinvention. From a teenage pop star to a powerhouse vocalist, change was always part of her identity. Fans expected it, even celebrated it. But her most recent transformation feels different. In a short span of time, Christina appears significantly slimmer, with sharper facial features and a more sculpted frame. The shift didn't feel gradual, it felt sudden, and that's what caught people off guard. Unlike her past evolutions, this one came with little explanation. Christina has always been private, but the silence this time has fueled even more curiosity. Some fans admire her discipline and see it as another phase of self-control and dedication. Others aren't so sure. The timeline doesn't quite match what people expect from natural, steady weight loss. That gap between expectation and reality is where concern begins to grow. Behind the scenes, there are signs that maintaining this new image requires extra effort. Styling, lighting, and camera angles seem carefully adjusted to balance her appearance. That alone has made some observers question whether this transformation is entirely self-driven or shaped by the pressures of an industry that rarely allows women to age naturally. Christina once represented confidence, freedom, and embracing every stage of life without apology. Now, her transformation feels more complicated. It reflects a deeper tension in Hollywood, where staying relevant often means constantly evolving, sometimes faster than the body can naturally keep up. Whether this change is personal choice or external pressure remains unclear. But what is clear is this. In Hollywood, transformation is rarely just about appearance. It's about survival in a system that never stops demanding perfection. Jessica Simpson has always stood out in Hollywood for one reason: she never pretended to be perfect. From her early pop career to building a successful fashion empire, she spoke openly about weight gain, pregnancy, and the pressure to look a certain way. That honesty made her relatable in an industry built on image. But recently, something shifted. In her latest appearances, Jessica looks noticeably slimmer, with sharper features and a more dramatic transformation than fans are used to seeing. What caught people's attention wasn't just the change, but how quickly it seemed to happen. Jessica has credited discipline, consistency, and healthier habits for her transformation. And to some extent, that may be true. But for many observers, the timeline feels unusually fast. Sustainable weight loss typically shows gradual progress, not sudden dramatic shifts. That's where the concern begins. Her social media presence has also evolved. There are longer gaps between posts, followed by highly polished photos that feel more curated than spontaneous. The raw, unfiltered tone she once had now feels more controlled, almost distant. Behind the scenes, there are quiet conversations about strict routines and the emotional pressure that comes with maintaining a certain image. What makes this more complicated is her past message. Jessica once encouraged people to embrace their bodies and accept change naturally. Now, her transformation seems to reflect a different reality. Some fans continue to support her, believing it's her personal choice. Others feel a growing disconnect. Jessica Simpson's story highlights a difficult truth. In Hollywood, even authenticity can shift under pressure, and sometimes the change isn't just physical, it's everything around it. Jonah Hill has long been one of Hollywood's most relatable figures, not just because of his talent, but because of his honesty. He never pretended to have a perfect body or a perfect image. Over the years, his weight has gone up and down in the public eye, and he often addressed it openly, sometimes with humor, sometimes with vulnerability. That transparency made people feel connected to him. But his most recent transformation feels different. In newer appearances, Jonah looks noticeably thinner, with a sharper and more fragile frame that has raised concern rather than praise. It's not just the change itself, it's the speed and pattern behind it. Fans have seen this cycle before. Weight loss followed by regain, then another drastic shift. Health experts often warn that repeated weight fluctuations can take a serious toll, both physically and mentally. And for Jonah, whose journey has always been so public, that pressure is amplified. Every change becomes a headline. Every appearance becomes a conversation. There are also signs that his public presence has shifted. He appears more guarded, more private, and less willing to engage in the same open way he once did. What used to feel natural now feels more controlled. The focus has moved away from his work and more toward how he looks. Jonah Hill's story highlights something deeper than just physical change. In Hollywood, transformation is often praised, but the cost behind it is rarely discussed. When the pressure to constantly evolve never stops, it can create a cycle that's hard to break. Mindy Kaling was once one of Hollywood's most refreshing voices. She built her career on talent, humor, and authenticity, proving that you didn't have to fit traditional beauty standards to succeed. She embraced her body, her personality, and her individuality, and audiences loved her for it. She represented something real in an industry that often feels carefully manufactured. Then, almost suddenly, things began to change. In recent appearances, Mindy looks noticeably slimmer, with a transformation that seemed to happen faster than many expected. It wasn't just the weight loss that caught attention, it was the speed. Fans who had followed her for years started asking questions. How did this happen so quickly? Mindy has credited healthier habits, consistent workouts, and a more balanced lifestyle. And while that may be part of the story, many observers feel the timeline doesn't fully align with what they expect from gradual, sustainable change. That gap has led to growing speculation. At the same time, her public image has shifted. Her social media now feels more curated, with polished photos and carefully chosen angles replacing the casual, relatable tone she once had. The humor about imperfection, something that once defined her, seems less visible now. For some fans, this isn't just about physical change. It feels like a shift in identity. Others defend her, pointing out that people evolve and have every right to make personal decisions about their bodies. Mindy Kaling's transformation highlights a deeper reality. In Hollywood, even those who once challenged the system can eventually feel its pressure. And sometimes, the biggest change isn't just how someone looks, but how they are seen. Scott Disick was once the picture of effortless confidence. Sharp suits, quick wit, and a polished image made him a standout in the Kardashian world. He didn't just exist in the spotlight, he thrived in it. For years, Scott seemed in control, balancing fame, lifestyle, and image with ease. But recently, something has changed, and people are starting to notice. In his latest appearances, Scott looks noticeably thinner, with a more hollow, fragile look that feels far removed from the version fans remember. What stands out isn't just the weight loss, but how quickly it happened. This wasn't a slow, gradual transformation. It appeared within months, and that sudden shift has raised more concern than admiration. On camera, styling and lighting help soften the effect, but off-camera photos reveal a different reality. The contrast has sparked conversations about what might be happening behind the scenes. Reports and speculation suggest that those close to him have grown concerned, especially as he continues to navigate life within the Kardashian spotlight, where image is constantly under pressure. There are also signs of a shift in behavior. Scott appears more withdrawn, less socially present, and more focused on maintaining a certain look. What once felt natural now seems more controlled, even strained. Fans who once admired his relaxed confidence are now questioning what's really going on. Scott Disick's transformation doesn't feel like a typical Hollywood glow-up. It feels like a warning. In an industry where relevance depends on appearance, the pressure to keep up can quietly take its toll. Rebel Wilson once framed her transformation as something positive, even empowering. She called it her year of health, inviting fans to follow her journey as she focused on fitness, mindset, and discipline. At the time, it felt genuine. She shared workouts, talked openly about her goals, and positioned the change as something rooted in self-care rather than pressure. People supported her because it felt real. But over time, the narrative started to shift. The speed of her transformation raised questions. The physical changes were noticeable, not just in her body, but in her face as well. And for many observers, the timeline didn't quite align with what they expected from gradual, sustainable progress. That's when curiosity turned into skepticism. At the same time, Rebel began expanding her journey into business. Programs, partnerships, and brand deals became part of the story. What once felt personal started to feel more structured, more curated. For some fans, that shift created distance. The authenticity they connected with now seemed harder to find. There were also ongoing conversations about how Hollywood responds to weight loss. Opportunities, roles, and public perception often change dramatically, reinforcing the idea that transformation isn't always purely personal. It can be shaped by what the industry rewards. Rebel has continued to stand by her journey, emphasizing health and personal growth. And to many, that's still valid. But her story highlights something deeper. In Hollywood, even positive change can become complicated. What starts as empowerment can quickly turn into expectation. And when millions of people are watching, the line between choice and pressure becomes harder to see. Hollywood sells transformation like a dream, but behind the glow, the truth is far more complicated. What looks like confidence, control, and discipline can sometimes be shaped by pressure, expectations, and a system that never slows down. These stories aren't just about celebrities. They reflect a culture that constantly tells people they need to change to stay relevant. And that raises a bigger question. Is this really a choice or something deeper? Now we want to hear from you. Do you think these transformations are personal decisions or signs of pressure behind the scenes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this video made you think, don't forget to like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more real stories behind Hollywood's image.